Welcome back to Roadmap, Auto Trader UK's Polluting Tech podcast. I think I've lost the ability to speak, but hopefully you're going to do all the speaking, because today's episode, again, is going a little bit off-piste, and we're going to dive into the topic of sustainability at Auto Trader. And I know, like, people are thinking, this is a Polluting Tech podcast, what does sustainability mean to me? Well, this is where you're going to find out, because I've got three mega guests on the couch today. I've got Heather Leonard, learning partner from our people and culture team. Hello, Heather.
Hello, Pete.
I've got Kaye, director of finance group, or group finance, or director of finance.
Nice to meet you, Pete.
Nice to meet you. Hi, Kaye. And last but not least, we've got Ian Plummer, our commercial director and one of our operational leadership team. Hey, Ian.
Hey.
Right. So, sustainability, broad subject. I've got my own views of what I'm doing from a sustainability perspective. I'm not part of the network, so really wanted you to sort of like bring what sustainability is at Auto Trader, and more specifically, what your roles are within Auto Trader within sustainability. I want to kick off with yourself, Ian.
Thanks, Pete. So I think that we should start at the beginning. Auto Trader's purpose we define as driving change together responsibly. And the responsibly bit highlights a couple of things. It's not just about sustainability. It includes the focus on having a really inclusive culture, about making decisions for the long-term benefit of all our stakeholders, partners, and so on, doing things in the right way.
Yeah.
But it definitely has a big focus on the environmental side of what we do. And we believe quite fundamentally that we're in an industry which isn't known for being environmentally sort of at the top of its game. It is actually the industry, the road transport, if you like, is the biggest contributor to the carbon emissions in the UK, around 18% last time I checked the numbers. So we're part of the problem as part of automotive, and we want to become part of the solution.
Yeah.
Transitioning towards sustainable mobility, different ways of travelling around. And people still need cars or other forms of travel. You can't just say don't travel and don't get a car. What we need to do is try and encourage the industry, but also therefore the consumer, and everything we do at Auto Trader in that direction.
Yeah.
There's clearly a lot of angles we work on across different parts of the spectrum, if you like, of how we can influence things. But we start off working on what we do at Auto Trader ourselves, how we can reduce our own carbon footprint, get our own people really engaged with that journey. Then we look at how we can influence others, particularly in the industry. And that focuses on all the partners we work with. We have 14,000 retailers. We work with all the brands, all the funders. So we know we can actually influence the bigger picture of that problem I described in the industry more by engaging with all those people than just sitting back and doing our own thing.
Yeah.
So it's taking our message out to industry, it's informing government policy even, and they're trying to change things in a broader sense across all those partners. And the third angle is what we can do with our consumers to transition towards what we'd call an environmentally friendly choice of car or van or bike, etc. is a challenge for a lot of people. Not everybody wants to do it, nor everybody really understands why they need to do it.
Yeah.
But because we have such an audience of 10, 11 million uniques coming to our platform every month, which is around a quarter of the people who hold a driving license in the UK, if we can influence them to understand that transition and work out how to do it with design and products and tech solutions that enable that, then we're playing our role. So there's those three key angles.
Yeah, and I've seen you like both on LinkedIn and events talking about that, like passionately and going through it. But how does that, and it's maybe a question for UK and Heather, how does that translate when we start to look internally? So like me as an employee, so what kind of, especially again in your roles?
So I think if you look at our employees, we've got a sustainability network that's been around for many years now, and I think each year it just gets, goes stronger and stronger. And it's those passionate employees that really drive what we do internally. And I think just as the fact that network is growing, the work that they're doing is getting bigger.
There's about 440 people in that network.
That's massive.
Yeah, and I think that demonstrates how important it is to employees, and therefore it's important to us as well as a business. Looking more specifically at my role, I guess, why am I involved? It is something I care about, but equally from an investor relations perspective, I guess when you think about the finances, it's something that we do get asked about more and more. And so, we need to demonstrate we're doing the right things, that we are, progressing, we're making change, we're measuring what we're doing, because people are genuinely interested.
Yeah, it's an interesting point from investor relations. I'm not going to go to Heather because I think she's just swallowed a frog.
Yeah. Thank you. I've not coughed all day.
That's all right. But yeah, so that is an interesting view. Like the fact is, we got like again, got industry, we got investor relations, we got internal employees, and everyone's got their own take and passion about it. But is there particularly like tangible things that me as an employee, because a lot of this we talk in the podcast is like what it's like to be an auto trader, to be an employee. So is there things where you could like touch and feel where we've sustainable network 400 plus people have made a difference over the last few years?
Yep, I think the changes we've made around the offices, so how many printers have we got now? Like 2 printers in the office.
Yeah, I noticed that the other day.
Has anybody ever printed?
I had to do one thing. I think I've printed out in the last about 6 months, I think maybe 2 documents, but it used to be like print everything out, wasn't it? It was unbelievable.
Things in the canteens, I think no plastic. And I know the sustainability network have worked really hard with the team up there, just to, lots of the changes that you see up there, no plastic, the containers that you have your food in, like things like that, how we dispose of any waste. I'm just trying to think of the things now. The fleet of cars that we use in our business, Tusker being introduced as a salary sacrifice scheme. I think they're the things that you do start to see and can relate to probably more as an employee.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was looking at the Tusker thing over the weekend. I think me and Ian were chatting Friday night, is doing a little bit of research into the subject before we come together, because obviously I can't just go with a complete blank slate. But then I don't really look at it. It's really interesting when you start to look at like what's on offer, and you can go by the EVs and also then the government grants around, getting access points. I was like, I became a bit obsessed over the weekend. I think actually probably my carbon footprint went up with the amount of electricity I was doing.
It's part of our flexible benefits to have the opportunity to get into those sort of cars. Because electric cars are much more expensive than petrol and diesel. They're around 30% more expensive when you buy them new. But actually, the majority of electric cars these days are being bought through what we call fleet channels. They're not really fleet buyers in the old sort of sense of the word, like a company car driver. But it's somebody either getting a benefit in kind advantage, a tax advantage when they're buying a car on a lease deal. Well, they might have their own business they can put that expense down against. Or more importantly, for what Kaye's talking about, people buying on a salary sacrifice scheme where you do get insurance and the cost of running the car.
I was well impressed.
Monthly payment. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you've got a comparable monthly payment that's very similar from an EV to an ICE. So it enables an employee of many companies. We're one of those that do this sort of program. We also do it for e-bikes. I should make a little plug as well.
Yeah, see,
big fan of bikes and e-bikes.
I'm a pedal biker, but I can get totally. I mean, like I live 20 miles away, so I get the bus into town to work. So I'm like, trying to do a bit. But it's one way I was thinking this might be for summer. I mean, my mates will kill me, but is this the one where you go and get an e-bike and you can just fly into town?
Well, you could always get an e-moped or an e-motorbike as well. As everything's transitioning that way. I mean, our vans and our trucks are heading in the same direction. You might have trucks using hydrogen, but everything's going down that same route. Ultimately, that's what we need to do. Even COP just in the last few days, they've finally said we're going to sign off on the transition away from fossil fuels. So all of our users, all of us need to get that in our minds as well about how we can transition sooner or later. We're going to have to do it hopefully sooner.
Yeah. But I think, Heather, when me and you first sort of started talking about this was I met you on the carbon literacy course. So do you want to go a bit into if you...
I think I'm back up. I'm just saving up cough one bit all day.
About carbon literacy.
I think I'm ready. So I think that's the one our people would recognise as sort of that really big touch point. So over 4 years, we've actually trained over 1,000 people. So it's been a hell of a run. Obviously, with people leaving and different people moving around, we're roughly on just over 890 at the minute. So that is the session that we work with the Carbon Literacy Project, and they accredit us to be deliver this training to our people. And you come in and you effectively learn everything there is to know about what carbon actually is, which sounds ridiculous, but and you'll remember drawing the cows on this very wall and understanding that process. And there's a real power in people understanding when we use these terms, when we talk about these things, what we're actually talking about. And I think they've estimated it's about 5 to 15% reduction. But what I find fascinating is you speak to people and the effect snowballs. And that's why I find carbon literacy so impactful, because it's not always tangible. Mm-hmm. But we're effectively talking about 900 people in the business walking around with a greater awareness of their everyday actions, which is where it becomes...
They've calculated their own footprint. They've been to change.
I mean, the thing that when I did it, I think it's a number of years ago, was obviously there was the educate, but the bits where, like you said, that CO2 footprint, but then things that you can do that make like marginal difference, but actually if you all do it. So I mean, I've been banging on about the bus, to be mates. We actually got the bus into town at the weekend, like me and some lads who were going out, right, rather than like driving in or getting a taxi in or whatever. And we said, like, it's £2. It's like, absolutely, like hybrid bus. It's absolutely, one, it's a bargain, and two, difference it starts to make when you think that's 60 people that could have been in 60 cars going in 4 times a week. It's unbelievable.
Well, a lot of people, I think, wrongly think that making changes to reduce their carbon is going to be a costly thing. Now, some of them are, like I mentioned, electric cars can be expensive to buy. On a used vehicle basis these days, they're sort of the same price as their petrol diesel equivalents. So it's not always the case. Get a heat pump installed, it can be expensive. You need a return investment over a period of time. So there are some things that are costly, but many decisions, the smaller things, like reduce your energy consumption by turning down your thermostat. What's it going to do? It's going to pollute less and it's going to cost you less. So you can save the planet as well as save your pocket at the same time. It isn't necessarily in line with certain politicians' recent statements, sort of a trade-off of one against the other. They can be complementary.
Yeah, I think that's the piece sometimes that people feel like I'm a small cog, and especially when you see the COPs happening and you hear people make big statements about, I want more scientific evidence, and you sort of feel like a very small part. But I think which is why carbon literacy is being quite impactful, is because you realise that small changes amongst a whole host of people actually add up. And there was something said to me about I'd rather live in hope than despair, and actually carbon literacy I think gives people those skills and that understanding, so you feel like anyone can take action in relation to that. No one's commitment is bigger than the next person's, which is really good.
And that leads to people doing things in their home life as well as their work life, doesn't it? And things like you mentioned lots of different examples. We'd never do an event, for example, with a trader with any form of throwaway cups or cans or whatever. People would bring their own water bottle. You'd have a water fountain that would be make sure there is one at the venue. It's that kind of little gesture that people understand. And if we didn't do it, there would be rightly an uproar of people saying, "What the heck?" Because they bought in.
I mean, training. On that P&C, I mean, because obviously I'm part of the P&C community, but some of the things that we did a conference earlier in the year, and it was really interesting because when we're designing it, we got people from the Sustainability Network in. It was again like so they was bring your own bottle, or there was bottled water in glass with glasses to use. We're going to be washed, and it was a bit where it's like you say, it's not like something that is out there and it's crazy what we're doing, but it's like those small things that start to add up. But it started to trigger because I was thinking again, leading into this is, so I can understand as an employee some of the benefits we're getting. We've changed the layout of the office. We've changed offices in London and gone to like a office better for the community we've got in there and smaller, so like reduced overheads of like energy consumption. But actually when you start to look at the product and tech community, is there things that again thinking about the sustainability in the network that you go, this is like directional of things we're doing more of, whether it be, I don't know, like the EV, and you talk about EVs all the time.
You sound like I'm boring you about
it. No, honestly, it's one way.
Well, you might be right.
But it's like scroll through your LinkedIn EV. No, I'm not.
So I think on EVs, the journey is a long one for us all to make, because we've got lots of stuff we've done, but lots of stuff we know we've got ahead of us still in product and tech. So the consumer transitioning to an EV from stuff they know really well needs guidance. Now, we have more people coming onto Auto Trader looking at cars and bikes and vans, etc., than anybody else. So we've got a real responsibility to help the consumer understand what they find otherwise difficult. Give you a simple example: people get lost in the terminology of like, what's a kilowatt hour? Most people have no idea. Just tell me, for example, how much range does that vehicle got, and how quickly do I charge it? And based on different types of charger, in a simple layperson sort of language, not a tech sort of jargon-filled, incomparable language where one brand will do it this way, one brand will do it another way, and you'll just confuse the consumer. But we've done a lot of work already to simplify our ad views so that people can do that simple comparison, can understand if they charge at home, how long is it going to take to get the car filled up, how long is it going to take to get it just a 30-minute quick charge, I've got to go out and I've forgotten to charge it. That kind of simplistic way of seeing things is the way that I think the consumer wants to understand EVs, but it's different to what they're used to. So we need to evolve. There's loads of work ahead of us in terms of things like battery health. People assume when you buy a second-hand electric vehicle that they're going to fade because our phone batteries die, and we assume the same of a car, but actually they're really good in terms of longevity and reliability. what we got to do is get the data, and we're working on that to try and show that battery health information to a consumer of that vehicle, and the retailer even buying in a vehicle before they sell it to a consumer, that they should have confidence. So there's lots ahead of us, but there's loads of work in product and tech where we can make a big difference.
Yeah. When I was chatting to you on a Kaye the other week about, so I was part of did a tiny bit, teams of moving all our technology out of physical data centers into the cloud. But that was something I was amazed of, looking at actually how we'd changed data centers and thinking about how renewables, but also the saving CO2 footprint when you move
it's a real
technology.
milestone, I think, to get all of our data centers into all of that into the cloud. And it's something I know the team have been working really hard on for quite a while now. So that was a big milestone to reach. Something I came across probably only a couple of weeks ago, actually, as part of the Net Zero working group as well, is the working group for sustainable web design, which I think is amazing, actually.
Yeah, I've heard, I mean, again, product and tech, I've heard the term mentioned, but I was like, what is this? Yeah,
and I'd seen like a podcast on it previously, and thought, what are we doing? So it was really nice to see that we are doing something about it, and it's how do we design our website more sustainably, like what about the images that are going on, videos,
scrolling,
how do we do that in a better way and everything. So I think it'd be interesting to see where we go with that.
No, it's one I want to, I think it's one of the designers I know Rach has been talking about. It's one I want to delve into. It's a really interesting topic, but you see sustainable web design, but you're like, but how this actually fits into the whole, with this energy consumption, etc. footprint.
Well, I just think, it's such a big part of our business. It's our core, and we always say about, the consumer journey is really important. So images and videos are really important, but then equally you've got to balance that with, the sustainable side of it. So it'd be interesting to see how that progresses.
Yeah. And I know we touched on carbon literacy before and 800 plus employees. Are there metrics that, so it's hard, but internally metrics that we're looking at to go, this is the direction of travel and we're going in the right direction, things that you particularly sweat over without you know what I mean? Is there something where you go, is the number of employees that have been through carbon literacy important?
Yes. It's twofold for me. There's a real quality and there's a quantity piece in all of this. And for me, we've hit platinum, which I think for me is about the numbers, but that actually says more about our investment as a business and doing the right thing. It's been a hell of a investment in people, in time, in cost. So the numbers are important because I think it's reflective of our investment.
Yeah.
I think just a phrase I come back to all the time with it is, which I hear Nathan say a lot, is it's doing the right thing. So actually when you first join the company, in your first 3 months, you are expected to go on to it. So measures of success to me are, yes, we've hit platinum. Yes, that means the majority of our workforce are certified. Yes, that shows an incredible investment. But for me, it should be that people joining the business understand that this is a really important part of our business, and we expect you to take the steps to do the best you can to reduce footprint and be that way minded. So they are important, but I think that's the metric for me.
I think we've struggled to think it would be so easy to recruit the best people if we weren't showing our intentions in this regard. Yeah. But I think for me it goes beyond also what we do at Autotrader, like I said at the beginning. So we've done an amazing job. I think the team's done brilliantly to take the concept of carbon literacy far further than just Autotrader. So I think we've trained something like 120 different businesses now.
Yeah.
And they're training their people in the same way that we've done our trainings. This isn't the thing where you go off on some big training course. It's your own people training your own people. And what's fantastic there is, again, we spread the benefit more widely, and we paid a small amount to adapt our tool to the toolkit to be automotive specific, working with a bunch of retailers, brands and so on, work with us to do that little bit of work. Then we cascaded it. Now a lot of our team members are doing days where they train the trainer, people from brands or retailers, etc., to learn how they can take it back into their business. And on top of that, we've now got a bit of work underway to do the same with the digital world. And then hopefully we can take that same toolkit that's now adapted to the world of digital media and tech and so on into any industry, any part of that industry, any company within that sector. So again, we spread the opportunity to get involved in these sort of things. And so anybody listening, please get in touch if anybody who wants to.
I think it is definitely, we're going to plug Ian Plummer, look him up on LinkedIn.
But it's a great way to get everybody engaged.
Totally.
And to Heather's point earlier, people see these big sort of stories explained by a CEO saying, in automotive, for example, an OEM might say, we've got this ship bringing the cars over from China or America, and it's got solar panels on it, and it's going to reduce our carbon footprint, right? So that by 20, 30, 50, 40, whatever it might be, we'll be net zero. And the individual sees that and thinks, it doesn't really affect me, does it? It's this big ship and a big thing and big date, long way away. But if you bring it back to carbon literacy, all of a sudden you understand what your role is individually and collectively at home and at work. And you can start working out, okay, this big thing up there, I have a role to play to help play my part. And I think that's fantastic. I think it's
and
empower people.
I think it's I often talk about the elephant in the room, because some people join the business and they think, oh, we're going on this carbon session, and actually we're an automotive. We're in the automotive industry, and I think some people feel scared to acknowledge that. But I think we lean into it, and the automotive toolkit has absolutely meant we've lent into it and gone, we're part of this wider system. It's the right thing to reduce and help others reduce as well.
Yeah. And how has it been received? Obviously, I've been, as an employer, I've been in the sessions where we've discussed it. How's it been received in the sort of automotive industry? I know you said people are putting the team. Was it skepticism at first? Was it totally embracing it? Was it depends who you're speaking to?
There's huge variability, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes most times when you suggest to a CEO or MD of a group or whatever that they should get involved in this, they nearly always would say, yeah, great idea. Sometimes you don't get the follow through simply because it competes with other priorities. People are assuming they've got to take their teams off the job to do something, well, they do for a period of time, but they also assume, like most training in automotive, they've got to send somebody up to some training centre, they're going to travel there, overnight there, it's going to be costly, and while they're doing all of that, they're not producing the car sales hours in the workshop kind of thing that they need them to deliver. So there's a little bit of negativity you sometimes get in that regard. But there's been a huge engagement factor that's grown, and I think there's an increasing level of sort of FOMO that's kicking in. If you seem to not be part of this agenda, when you've got to be recognising that you're a part of a carbon industry, and that you're also asking your teams to go and sell electric cars, which are the future of your industry. Very hard to do that electric car thing if you don't really understand why you're doing it.
Yeah.
You know?
I know you were talking about metrics, so
I love a good metric.
we do measure. So like we
finance
measure everything.
Measure everything. And we measure all scopes. And I'm not going to get into the technical jargon because I'll probably get it wrong. But we have been measuring our footprint for the last few years, and it does keep you on track because it helps you focus. It helps you look at where are our priority areas.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important to acknowledge that measuring isn't the only thing. And again, I remember being at one of our sustainability events, and Patagonia spoke, and he was like, "Don't let measuring delay taking action. It's important to measure because then you can identify."
As in Patagonia clothing, Patagonia.
Yeah,
they're incredible.
Well, they're brilliant,
And he was just like, don't let the focus on measuring cause any delay.
Paralyze you.
Yeah, exactly. Get going with stuff. Yes, think about measuring your carbon footprint, identifying where your hotspots are, but still take action.
And that's another example of how we tried to take the message out more widely. So that event was, we had a sustainability forum. We've done 3 now, I think, where we have some retailers, some brands, people from different sizes of business. So we had, let's say, a chap, the marketing director of Nissan, who's obviously a massive brand in this country, big factory in this country, big producer of cars as well as some retailer groups and some funders and lease companies and some small independents. So a great example from a small independent who's a fascinating chap who said, for example, that point about measuring, I'd love to be able to measure everything. We do, and we have science-based targets, and we do get them validated externally. He said, I don't really need to do that to do a carbon reduction plan to know that some things I can change straight away. He said, because I can sit in my office like I did one day, and I turn around, and I can see a pile of tyres there. And I know that I'm not doing much with those tyres, and I don't really know where they go. Somebody takes them away, and I don't know what happens to them. So I don't need somebody to come and measure the fact that that's probably not great. What I can do is work out a better solution. So I get in touch with a few people, and I find an AstroTurf provider that needs tyres to grind them down to put into the football pitches and so on. So now he knows where his tyres go, and he's made a positive step.
Yeah.
He hasn't measured it, but he knows he's done it.
Yeah.
So it's a great little thing that make a difference.
Yeah.
Starting small as well, actually, because I think ours has just grown so much, hasn't it, over the last 5 years.
Have you noticed in the starting small, as part of the carbon literacy again, I don't know what they do in the sort of more professional toolkit, we make a commitment. You make it.
We use that one as well in
make a commitment. And mine was as simple, I think when I did it was 2, it was like, ride my bike more to work rather than drive my diesel van
Yeah.
all the way. And the second was try and use the bus once a week.
Yeah.
And they were like, you look at them like they're not very grand, those. But you find like that is the key, those, especially with employees or individuals, that doing the small things that actually once you're doing it, it sticks. That has made actually quite a little bit of a step change.
It's snowball effect, isn't it? And again, from a very individual level, you have to find things you're going to actually do. Like me saying I'm not going to use my car in the week when I have to be at a certain place to collect my child because they're going to be stood on the street at 6 p.m. It's not practical. I'm probably not going to stick to that 100%. So I think we very much come from, but also related to your scope of influence, which I think is really important. You know, the commitments we have from people are going to vary. Ian's commitment is going to be different because of his scope of influence to someone else, but it doesn't mean it's more or less important. That there's elements of, I think for everyone, start small, start with things that feel tangible. And I think that works on an individual basis, but also business. And we've seen it time and time again with Carbon Literacy Project, who we work with. People start like us with, Christos going over to home and experiencing a carbon literacy project. And then look at us now where we are. So I think it works individually and with organisations.
And again, maybe this is like, it's a question probably to both of you. So when we talk to and investors talked about us, can you see there is any sort of like, oh, actually that's something we'll take back and do something with, or is it more, I don't know what the IR angle is on it really?
I think they do just want to know you are on that journey and that you're doing the right things, not just with environmental sustainability, but more broadly, like Ian referenced at the beginning around DEI, and making sure that we are a sustainable business going forward. I think what I found really interesting is that they're all really impressed with what we do, and then you can also, we don't really have that. We need to start thinking about that. So it is really interesting.
I don't think you get brownie points for doing it, but I think you get like malice points.
You're not.
Yeah. And have you found with when we're talking to brands or retailers that they're, like you said, the guy with the tyres, but there's little things that they might start to do differently? I know like EV is massive on the agenda, but stuff whether it's how they've got their forecast set up, little things.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's lots we can do in that regard, and that's the next stage of what we're working on in these sustainability forums, trying to build a community of folks who can lead the charge, share ideas and so on, but keep sort of snowballing that so that more and more people share their ideas and via best practice or the templates shared on an open access website, etc. Anybody can see the best ideas applied by another retailer or by another brand or whatever. And the point we often make to people, and I think everyone gets it, is it's not a zero-sum game. We're in a very competitive industry. All our retailers, we've got 14,000 of them on Auto Trader and all 50-odd brands or whatever, they're all competing against each other every day. That's what they do. And we, as a marketplace, enable them to do it. But in this one, no one wins. We don't all win, but everyone will lose if no one does anything. So we've all got to work at sort of sharing ideas and learning from each other.
I think that's what I found, like, when speaking to other companies, everyone's really open about sharing ideas, and they do want to know what you're doing because they want to make sure they're doing it as well. And a piece of work that Dave Graham's working on as part of procurement is like, looking at our top suppliers. So as part of our responsibility doing that. But just to see, what are they doing? Are they doing the right thing? If they are, we can learn from them. If they're not, it's not that we won't use them, we'll help them. And
it's interesting because Dave brought it up where we're doing not going into who he was, but like a contract discussion. And he's like, can we speak to you and see what you're doing around these things? And they were like, I feel like they were like-minded company, like, brilliant, get you in touch with this person, we can take you through that. And he's like, it wasn't like a whoa. It was straight away, totally know why you're asking this. We can go into what our strategy is and share our ideas.
And I think that is it. They are going to be asked, like, more and more, they will be asked, what is your strategy? And so I think people do need to start now learning and understanding what it is they're going to be doing.
So the thing that fascinated me the other week was, and you've mentioned it a few times today, is like our actual working with government and sort of the data we have. So, Ian, I know you spend a lot of time down in the House of Parliament or whatever it is nowadays in your other role. But like when we are talking to government, like what type of stuff are we working with them around the sustainability, EV, etc.?
Well, we share a lot of data in terms of what the consumers are actually doing when they're looking at electric cars or not, and how they're behaving, what the trends are, and whether there's an imbalance of supply and demand is a common thing, whether it's on new electric vehicles or used. And there have been several moments where that's happened, and it's happening right now. There's a surge of new cars coming through, not enough demand for them. demand has basically oscillated based on petrol prices going up and down, or petrol being queued for and so on. At the moment, it's starting to come down a little bit, but it's been high, so demand's been okay. And the basic problem there is that either the government needs to incentivise more demand to reduce the price gap, which is the biggest barrier for people going electric, that I've mentioned already, or the manufacturer will need to do it. Now, at the moment, the government has stepped away from that because they basically changed the headline point of the 2030 ban on petrol and diesel that pushed back to 2035. But actually, they imposed some legislation that went through Parliament just very recently. It's called the ZEV mandate, which says that every brand has got to sell a certain percentage of electric cars within their sales, new car sales, every year. That starts next year with 22%. The industry average this year is 16%. Within that, Tesla do 100%. So, and a couple of others, Polestar, etc. So there's quite a lot of people who are at 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So they've got a huge step to get to 22. Yeah. And if they don't, they pay £15,000 per car that misses the target. So it's a huge fine. That no brand makes £15,000. Maybe Porsche when they're selling a car, let alone they've got to pay £15,000 for selling one. So this is huge, and that's the kind of pressure point the industry is now under. So they're likely to see mostly now the manufacturers having to find a way to cut their costs, or just lose margin to be able to hit their 22% numbers. So around all of that context, there's lots of stuff we've shared around ULEZ zone, for example, to the TfL folks who changed their policy on the scrappage program, where it was restricted to people who are on benefits. Well, most people who are on benefits don't have a car of any sort, so they didn't need the scrappage program, and no wonder no one was buying into it. We did lots of analysis on the price of cars that were applicable to the terms of the ULEZ ban in London, and did influence them to change that policy. So whether it be there or where we're still working with government to try and get some support to incentivise the consumer to go electric on new and used vehicles, to make the charging rates fairer. You pay 20% VAT when you charge publicly, 5% when you charge at home. I'm not exactly fair, is it? There's lots of things around this. Imposing that battery health legislation, which we said they should push through harder, faster, so that we can make a standard for what I described earlier, make it easier for people to compare. There's loads of stuff we share on a monthly basis, a lot of what's going on in Auto Trader. We're lucky to have lots of data and insight, and we see that as another part of our responsibility agenda to do the work, spend the time sharing that data to inform decisions. It's up to them and the government to do something with it. Hopefully they will.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. We're now coming up to nearly out of time. So is there anything thinking so I'm either an employee or I'm someone interested in what Auto Trader do, or even becoming an Auto Trader employee, is there any particular assets you'd say, apart from hooking you up on LinkedIn, you say, go and have a look at this. This is really insightful. I mean, I was doing a bit of browsing across our site, and I keep going over the electric car giveaway. And, you know what I mean? Trying to get somebody to, try and get one up there. So is there any other assets we should be pointing people to?
Well, we've got an EV hub on Auto Trader.
Yeah.
So great sort of space for understanding EVs, demystifying them. There's a great video or two that Rory has done, like the electric skeptics one. That's fantastic. If you want to believe how powerful and fun electric cars are, and that they're certainly not dull and boring, then watch that video. There's a bunch of content in it.
And then there's the ESG section on our investor website, and you can find it on the web or then download the annual report. There's lots of information in there.
Brill.
I think I'd plug the carbon literacy. Yeah, literacy. It's a good job I can say that. Carbon literacy project as well, because they are
Say one more time.
Literacy. Just keep that third one. I really want to plug their work because I think they are incredible allies to have if you're an organisation, and even individuals can go and get accredited with them as well, but they'll give you a huge amount of support, and they're in most sectors now as well. So anyone who is listening or watching and is looking to get into that, they're an incredible start.
They're a not-for-profit company. I mean, they're a bunch of people doing a lot of great work for the right reasons, anyway.
Passionate individuals as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Right. So huge thanks to Kaye, Ian and Heather for getting your perspectives on sustainability. Learned some new stuff today myself, which is always great. So thanks for viewing and tuning in. Please like and subscribe on YouTube and share. I've been told we need to share. Hit the notification button so you never miss an episode, and follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And that's us done. Catch you soon.